Welcome to Here's How We Get There. It's the daily show filled with conversations about business and mental health in a down-to-earth style with real-world language. Now let's dive in with your co-hosts, Kenneth Shark Kinney and Trey Tucker.
Shark, the news came out that California has raised the minimum wage to $20 an hour, and almost immediately Pizza Hut laid off all of their delivery drivers. And this highlights the bigger story of the fact that businesses are going to be struggling going into 2024 with things like inflation, things like minimum wage going up, all their issues and other variables that are unpredictable. So what tips can you give small businesses for how to navigate the challenges of 2024?
Well, one, this story is fascinating because the federal minimum wage remains at 7.25, but in 22 states, boosting pay in 2024 is going to make the cost of labor really go up. I believe it was 22 states and 43 cities and counties are increasing it. It's going to be nearly 10 million people. I'm going to tell you a couple things to take advantage of, especially if you're in a small business, and I work with a lot of small businesses that are realizing or trying to figure out what they're going to do. One is take advantage of the recruiting opportunity that a lot of people won't think of taking advantage of. Let people know that you're paying a higher pay. You know, it's worked forever with a lot of, you see it a lot of times, especially in fast food chains where they say, we're paying now, 13, 15, whatever an hour, even when you drive through. The more that story gets out, the more it starts to resonate with people who oftentimes live through referrals for employees. And when you set up good conditions and you're also paying people $22 an hour, then that gives you a leg up for recruiting. I've heard this over and over again from people. The other issue, though, is really trying to figure out, where does the cost come into account? Is it for having less staff or keeping the staff you have and passing all of those costs on to the consumer? It's hard to do anything less than pass those costs off, because you don't want a deflated workforce who's in fear of losing their jobs because they know what's going on. They see the news that, Pizza Hut, with a couple of the different chains in California, laid off all their drivers because they got to adjust. But really, I think figuring out how to message that to consumers so that they understand why the costs have gone up. Again, a lot of times we hear all the stories in the news. There were a lot of people protesting and talking, and wages were going up, and we voted on it, and this is what happened, and now it's in place. But then Johnny or Sally who buys your product or service do not understand why it just doubled in price.
Right.
Help explain that story so that people can understand and at least have some, empathy for the concerns of the employees. Don't just pass off a cost without really messaging it so that, and I think this happens over and over again, and it stinks that people are having to pay more. But if you explain to me why, where I understand why there is a difference in the price versus a new value, it can make a big difference in, how that resonates with me as a consumer. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, to dovetail off of that, the honesty and the transparency of that, just going ahead and being upfront about, hey, here's why the prices are going up. We value you as a customer. That transparency goes a long way in building relationships. And you and I both know relationships draw customers, relationships keep employees. I mean, even take it out of business, people are just going to remain loyal to somebody they feel connected to, whether it's a person or a business. So that relationship between you and your customer thrives on the fact that you're being open with them. Because if they, customers have a good BS meter. And if they see that you're just trying to sweep things under the rug or act like the prices aren't going up, that's a real turnoff for the customers. But I think overall, also trying to focus even harder on the customer experience, because if you're going to ask them to pay more, then you better give them more in return.
Well, we saw a lot of this with shrinkflation. You think of a bottle of wine or a box of cereal. The punt, which is that little divot in the base of the bottle of wine, has gotten bigger. So there's less liquid in there. Boxes that you look at in your grocery store for groceries, they look the same when you're looking right at them, and then you look how they're getting slimmer. Well, most of us, especially me, are not getting slimmer. But when you, but when I'm honest with people and explain to people that we're having to pay this more because of this, that transparency is so hard for people to, companies are very reluctant to explain that because they think that another company is going to defeat them by not explaining it. So the costs stink, but it's an opportunity to do more for your customer in 2024. So take advantage of it.
Thank you for joining Shark and Trey on the Here's How We Get There show. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show and visit here'showwegetthere.com. That's here'showwegetthere.com.